Let me tell you something about men. When you go silent, when you stop chasing, when you stop begging, suddenly he remembers your name. But is he remembering you? Or is he just remembering how much power he lost when you walked away? Ladies, don't confuse a return with a realization. Sometimes it's not love, it's just ego. Let's break it down. You see, when a man suddenly reappears after you've gone silent, it's not always about love. Sometimes it's about his ego echoing in the silence you created. That echo, it's loud, it's unsettling, and it rattles the very foundation of the control he thought he had over you. Let's be honest. Most men are not wired to handle real rejection. Not the kind where a woman doesn't yell, doesn't beg, doesn't argue, but simply disengages. That silence becomes louder than all the messages you used to send. Every good morning text that stopped, every call that never came, every time he checks to see if you viewed his story and you didn't. That bruises the ego more than 1,000 words ever could. Picture this. You used to be the woman who replied in seconds, who stayed up waiting for his late night texts, who forgave the ignored calls, the ghosted weekends, the half-hearted apologies. But now, you don't even flinch. You're not mad, you're not sad, you're just done. And that terrifies him. Because the woman who fights still wants something. But the woman who is silent, she's already gone. She doesn't need closure, she became her own closure. This isn't about revenge, this is about self-respect. Have you ever seen a man's face when he runs into you after you've gone no contact? He says, "Hey, how have you been?" But what he really means is, why does she look so happy without me? That moment, that right there, is the echo of a fragile ego shattering against the wall of your glow-up. Think of it like this. When you stop feeding someone's ego, they starve. And it's not because they suddenly realized they love you. It's because they lost the control they mistook for love. That's why the social media famous story shows up. You can't be a flatterer. You can't be a flatterer. It doesn't go well with people. You can't be a flatterer. It doesn't go well with people. It can't be profane. The first time, that's why he's back. Not because he had an epiphany about your soul, but because he's addicted to the version of you that once placed him on a pedestal. Let me give you a real life scene. You're in your kitchen, sipping your coffee, laughing with your friends, talking about your goals, and you get a message, "I miss you," out of nowhere, after months of silence. That's not love. That's ego withdrawal. That's him realizing his absence didn't shake your world, that your life didn't fall apart when he left, that your heart didn't freeze waiting for his return. That's when he starts to panic. And suddenly all those things he ignored before, he starts praising them. "You're so strong. You're different. I've never met anyone like you." "No, darling, you were always like this." He just didn't see it when he thought you needed him. But now that he feels like he's the one left behind, the echo of his ego needs soothing. And you've already moved into peace. That's power. Let's flip the script. Imagine a woman who always supports her man. Every plan, every failure, every dream. She claps for him, cheers for him, holds him down. But when she needs just a little, he vanishes. So she stops, she pulls away, She starts supporting herself. Weeks later, he comes crawling back. And what does he say? You've changed. Yes, she has. She stopped watering someone who never brought her flowers. She stopped explaining herself. She stopped needing to be seen and became someone no one could ignore. That's the ego echo. It's not a romantic song playing in the background. It's a siren blaring in his mind, reminding him of what he lost when he took her love for granted. Every second of your silence screams, I don't need you anymore. I want to be alone and I want to let you. And that's a language his ego can't handle. Because it's not that he realized your worth, it's that he finally felt your absence. There's something undeniable about a woman who doesn't overshare, who doesn't explain, who doesn't need to prove her value with words. She simply exists in her power, and the world is left to wonder. That's the kind of energy that makes men restless. Because mystery, it's magnetic, it's powerful, and it pulls harder than beauty, louder than charm. It leaves him awake at 2 a.m. scrolling through old conversations, trying to decode the silence that now surrounds your name. When you stop giving him everything, your time, your attention, your forgiveness, suddenly you become a riddle he can't solve. He starts asking himself, what is she doing? Who is she with? Does she even miss me? That uncertainty isn't weakness. It's your greatest strength. It puts you back in the driver's seat. Because now, he's chasing clarity and you're not offering any. Think about this. We live in a world where everything is overexposed. People post what they eat, where they sleep, who they're with, what they wear. But you go quiet. You stop showing your pain. You don't post quotes about heartbreak. You don't give him clues. You give him questions. And questions are dangerous for a man who thought he figured you out. That moment when he realizes he can't read you anymore, that's when the chase begins. Not because you changed, but because you stopped trying to be understood. You let him guess. And let me tell you something. Mystery is not about playing games. It's about having a life so full that you don't need to explain it. It's about walking into a room with calm eyes and confident silence and letting people feel your presence without demanding attention. Take this daily life example. You used to reply to his messages instantly. He'd text, what are you doing? And you'd answer in 3 seconds flat. Now, hours pass. Sometimes days. Not out of pettiness, but because your world no longer revolves around a man who couldn't value it when he had it. And he notices. He feels it. He craves the version of you who was predictable, but that version is gone. And this one doesn't chase. She attracts. Think of a movie trailer. The kind that doesn't give the whole plot, just flashes of mystery, tension, beauty, power. You see it and you want to know more. That's the energy you carry now. You don't need to narrate your pain. You don't need to spell out your glow up. You let them witness it from a distance, without access. Because when you become a mystery, you no longer beg to be understood. You become unforgettable. Another example, you walk into a cafe, dressed in simplicity but radiating confidence. You don't look around. You don't check who's watching. But they are. Especially him. He sees how you order your coffee, how you smile at the barista, how you sit alone, not lonely, but whole. And in that moment, he realizes something terrifying. You never needed him to complete you. You were always complete. He was just too blind to see it when you handed your heart too openly. Now that he's no longer in your orbit, he can't breathe in your light. He has to watch from a distance. And that distance, that uncertainty, that's the most powerful seduction there is. Because a man can only desire what he doesn't possess. And the more he can't figure you out, the more his mind becomes a maze of what ifs and regrets. Mystery doesn't mean silence. It means sovereignty. It means you don't explain why you walked away. You don't justify your silence. You don't announce your glow up. You live it. You let him sit in the silence and wonder, did she move on? Is she happier? Is she in love? And the truth is, you know the answers, but he never will. And that truth, that's the power he never saw coming. They don't see your value when you're available, every time they call, when you respond in seconds, when your love comes served on a silver platter with no effort required. They don't see it when you're always there, always forgiving, always hoping they'll finally treat you right. Because people grow blind to what is constant, deaf to what is always spoken, numb to what is always given freely. But the day you disappear, the day your absence becomes real, that's when your value starts echoing in every corner of their world. You don't have to fight for space in anyone's life. Sometimes the loudest statement you can ever make is your silence. And the most powerful presence you'll ever have is your absence. When you step back, not out of drama, but out of dignity, you create space. And in that space, they're forced to face what they had, what they lost, what they ignored. Suddenly, the texts they used to ignore start haunting them. The laughter they used to take for granted becomes the silence they can't stand anymore. You were always valuable. They just needed your absence to remember it. Picture a woman in a workplace. She's the one who's always there early, stays late, fixes the problems, brings the peace. No one claps. No one notices. It becomes expected. Until one day, she calls in sick. And suddenly, the office doesn't run the same. Deadlines are missed. Emails go unanswered. People whisper, "Where is she?" That's when it hits them. She mattered more than they ever said. And that moment, that's the beginning of her power being recognized. Not because she fought for attention, but because her absence shook the system. That's how it is in love too. When you're always there, your presence is assumed. But when you pull away, not in bitterness, but with elegance. Think of a man who used to message you whenever it suited him. You'd drop everything, you'd answer at midnight, you'd rearrange your plans for his convenience. He got used to the idea that you'd always be there. But now, the phone ring. Your energy is no longer his to summon. And that confuses him. That wounds him. Because the power he thought he had, it never came from him. It came from your willingness to show up. And now that you no longer do, he has to sit with the loss. He has to scroll through old pictures and reread messages where you poured your heart out. He has to remember all the times you were patient, kind, and loving, while he was inconsistent and selfish. And it hits him. You were rare. Not because you left, but because when you finally left, you didn't look back. You didn't announce it. You didn't threaten it. You simply disappeared. And he never saw that coming. Every woman needs to understand this truth. Presence is powerful, but absence is transformational. Because when you're not around, people are forced to see what life feels like without your light. And if they didn't appreciate it when it was shining, they'll feel the cold when it's gone. Let your absence speak where your words couldn't. Let your silence scream louder than your tears ever did. Let them feel the void that only you used to fill. Imagine this. You walk away from a man who couldn't value you, and instead of collapsing, you rise. You're glowing, you're doing better, you're focused, and from a distance, he watches. From the shadows, he regrets. From the silence, he hears the sound of you healing. Because now, you've become the one that got away, the one he thought he could always return to, but can't. The one he underestimated until it was too late. Because your value never left, it was just hidden behind the noise of your availability. Now that you're gone, it's all he can see. When a man is too comfortable, he stops trying. He stops chasing. He stops appreciating. He stops evolving. Comfort becomes a slow killer. It numbs the desire, dims the passion, and blinds him to the blessing he once begged for. But the second you introduce uncertainty, the second you remove predictability, the second he's no longer sure what you're thinking or feeling or doing, that comfort shatters. And in its place rises a fire called curiosity. And curiosity, it doesn't let him sleep at night. He starts to wonder, why is she quiet? Why hasn't she checked in today? Is she moving on? Is she happier now? That wondering turns into a spiral. That spiral turns into regret. And that regret turns into realization. You didn't have to yell. You didn't have to block. You didn't need to announce your exit with fireworks. You simply became unavailable. And the very comfort he built on your consistency is now a haunting silence he can't control. You want an example? Think of a man used to coming home to the same meal, the same routine, the same warm hug from the woman he barely acknowledges anymore. It's always there, so he stops saying thank you. He stops noticing her smile until one day she's gone. No note, no explanation, just gone. And suddenly, that meal isn't on the table. That warmth isn't in the air. That home feels empty. The comfort he once treated like a right is now a luxury he can't find anywhere else. Vinetu, the comfort he once treated like a right is now a luxury he can't find anywhere else. And the reason? Curiosity. Because now he's forced to ask, what happened to her? Where is she? Who is she with? That's the danger of comfort. It makes people lazy. But curiosity wakes them up. It makes them chase. It brings the thrill back, the desire back, the respect back. Because when a woman becomes a question instead of an answer, she becomes unforgettable. She's no longer part of his routine. She's the plot twist in his story. And it applies to every area of life. Even in friendship. You give and give and give. You're the one checking in, planning everything, being the shoulder to cry on. They get used to it. They expect it. They even roll their eyes when you're overly kind. But the moment you stop, the moment you go silent, the group chat feels empty. The vibe changes. People start wondering, did something happen? Did we lose her? That silence isn't cold, it's powerful. Because you didn't stop caring, you stopped being taken for granted. Now think of the digital world. A man checks your social media like a ritual. He's used to seeing your stories, your selfies, your thoughts. It feeds his ego to know you're still out there, watching, waiting. But suddenly, nothing. No story. No post. Not even a view. Your silence online becomes louder than your presence ever was. He starts asking himself questions you never had to ask him. Where did she go? Why is she not watching me anymore? That's when curiosity starts eating him alive. Because what he doesn't know drives him crazy. What he assumed would always be there starts slipping through his fingers. And suddenly the comfort that made him careless turns into fear. Fear that someone else is now enjoying the attention he wasted. Fear that someone else is making you laugh in ways he couldn't. Fear that you've grown beyond his reach. That fear is the consequence of his comfort and the reward of your curiosity. You were never hard to love. You were just easy to overlook when he thought you'd never leave. But now, you're a mystery he can't solve, a silence he can't fill, and a woman he can't reach. He's no longer sure if you care, and that uncertainty, that's the storm that breaks the comfort he once slept in. And now, he's wide awake, asking questions only you have the power to answer. But you won't, because now you are the question. And nothing is more irresistible than that. They say you need closure to move on, that you need one last conversation, one final explanation, one neatly packaged goodbye. But the truth is, closure is not always given, and you do not owe it. Not to the man who walked away without thinking twice. Not to the one who broke your heart and acted like it was nothing. Not to the people who shattered your peace and then expected you to calmly explain your silence. You don't owe them a seat at the table of your healing. You are allowed to walk away mid-sentence if the conversation is killing your soul. You are allowed to choose your peace over their confusion. Because sometimes closure is just a fancy word for control. They want to know why you stopped replying, why you disappeared, why you seem unbothered now. But ask yourself, when you were crying at 2 a.m., when you begged for honesty, when you stayed up hoping for a text that never came, did they offer you closure? Or did they just ghost and leave you bleeding in the middle of a conversation you never got to finish? There's a woman I know, strong, independent but soft-hearted. She loved deeply, she forgave endlessly, and every time he hurt her, she waited for him to come back and say, "I'm sorry." But he never did. She kept chasing closure like it was oxygen, until one day she realized the closure she needed wasn't a text from him. It was a decision from her. She wrote one last message, not to send, but to release. And then she deleted it. That moment wasn't quiet, it was powerful. Because she finally understood. You don't need them to understand why you left. You just need to understand why you had to. Think about it like this. When someone breaks a vase, do they come back to apologize to the broken pieces? No. They just move on. But the pieces, they stay shattered until someone picks them up. That someone is you. You have to be the one to gather your strength, your pride, your worth. You have to be the one to say, even without an apology, I choose to be whole again. Because waiting for closure from someone who never respected your emotions is like waiting for rain in a drought. They dried you out, and now you're begging them for water. Even in friendship, this shows up. Your best friend of years suddenly stops calling, stops responding, starts acting cold. You send a message, no reply. Another, still nothing. And the silence screams louder than any fight ever could. You wonder what you did wrong. You replay every conversation, overthinking every moment. But here's the truth. Sometimes people leave Not because of you, but because of them. Their journeys shifted, their capacity shrank, their loyalty cracked, and you're not responsible for that. You are only responsible for how you rise after being dropped. There's a power in not explaining, in simply removing yourself from the story without writing the last chapter. Let them wonder. Let them question. Let them spiral. Because if they didn't appreciate your truth when you were handing it to them, they don't deserve the privilege of your final words now. Some people need to feel your absence more than they ever felt your presence. And the silence you give them, that silence is sacred. That silence is strength. You don't owe closure to the man who only calls when he's lonely. You don't owe it to the friend who ghosted you the moment things got hard. You don't owe it to the family member who only shows up when they need something. You owe it to yourself. To heal without reopening the wound. To grow without digging up the roots. To evolve without needing their validation. And if they ever come back knocking on your door with questions, remember this. The version of you that needed their closure no longer exists. You buried her with the pain. And the woman standing in her place, she doesn't explain. She doesn't beg. She doesn't revisit graves. Because she finally knows. Closure is not something you wait for. It's something you become. He returns, the same man who vanished when you needed him the most, the one who chose silence when your soul screamed for answers, the one who watched you fall apart and didn't flinch. Now suddenly, he remembers you. Now suddenly your name feels warm on his tongue again. He comes back with old pictures, familiar laughs, and memories that taste sweet. But let me ask you something, with fire in my voice. Do you still want him? Because there's a version of you that used to cry over him. A version that waited by the phone, that crafted the perfect text only to delete it because pride and pain were wrestling in your chest. A version of you that made excuses for his neglect. A version that whispered, maybe he's just busy, maybe he'll change. But that version died. That girl, she's not here anymore. She was buried beneath every tear he never saw, every word he never said, every effort he never made. But now he returns, expecting to pick up where he left off, like you've just been frozen in time, waiting for his affection to reappear. But baby, you didn't freeze. You evolved. You built peace out of your pain. You found strength in your silence. You rewrote the chapters he abandoned. And while he was out there playing games, you were leveling up. You were learning how to be whole again. Not perfect, but powerful. Picture this. A woman gets dumped by a man who says she's too emotional. He goes off chasing something new, something shiny, something easier. Then, slowly, she starts going to the gym. She focuses on her business. She gets that glow back in her eyes. Months later, he texts her, "Hey stranger." But the woman reading that text isn't the same one who used to melt at his name. She looks at the message and feels nothing. Because once you taste your own peace, chaos loses its charm. That's the danger of growth. It makes you immune to what once poisoned you. You stop craving validation from the ones who invalidated you. You stop bending just to fit into spaces that shrunk you. And most importantly, you stop being available to people who only show up when it's convenient. Now he returns with, "I miss you." But does he miss you, or does he miss your attention, your energy, your loyalty? Because often, men don't miss the woman. They miss the power she gave them. They miss how important she made them feel. And when that power disappears, they come crawling, not out of love, but out of lack, out of discomfort, out of fear that someone else now receives what they once took for granted. It's like when you leave an old job that drained you. At first they don't notice, but then they realize nobody can replace your drive, your fire, your heart. So they call, "We'd love to have you back." But you've already found a career that values you, that pays you in more than just words. Would you go back? Or would you smile and walk away, knowing your worth is not up for negotiation? He returns, but now you are the storm. You are the peace after the wreckage. You are the woman who doesn't chase, doesn't explain, doesn't shrink. So before you let him back into your world, ask yourself, is he returning to build or to borrow? Because you are not a hotel room for tired souls. You are not a pit stop for the lost. You are a destination. Not everyone deserves to arrive. Remember this. Just because he returns doesn't mean you receive him. Forgiveness is your power, but access is your choice. And maybe, just maybe, the reason he's coming back now is because he finally sees the value that was always there. But now the real question is, do you still see him the same way? Or have you finally seen enough? You are not here to be someone's second thought, someone's aftershock, someone's, maybe I was wrong. You are not built to be recycled love. You are not a memory he can revisit when life goes quiet. You are not the same woman he left behind. And just because someone finally wakes up and realizes your worth, doesn't mean you have to open the door and let them back into your peace. Because peace is earned. Trust is earned. And access to you must be earned. There's a reason why diamonds don't go on clearance. They don't beg to be chosen. They don't lower their worth just to sit in someone's pocket. They shine silently, fiercely, because they know they are valuable with or without the buyer. And so are you. Listen to me. When you heal, you become dangerous. When you stop chasing apologies, explanations, or closure, you become a force that no one can manipulate. You become the woman who doesn't chase, doesn't explain, and sure as hell doesn't beg to be seen. You are the view. You are not something to be figured out later. You are the moment. And the moment anyone fumbles you, you walk. The most powerful thing a woman can ever say is, I don't need you to love me the way I begged for before. Because love should never be begged for. Affection should never be negotiated. And your presence is not some discount offer waiting to be redeemed by someone who once treated you like an option. Remember this. You don't rise by chasing people. You rise by chasing purpose. You rise by showing up for yourself in ways no one ever did. You rise by choosing yourself over and over again until your soul says, finally, she picked me. Because the comeback isn't when he texts you again. The comeback is when his name no longer triggers your spirit. When the thought of him doesn't shake your smile. That's the win. Some people don't come back because they miss you. They come back because their life isn't working without you. But ask yourself, were they building a life with you when they had you? Or were they watching you break while they stayed silent? And if the answer isn't clear, that is your answer. You are not a chapter to be reread when someone feels lonely. You are not a temporary escape for someone bored with their options. You are the whole damn book. And the next time someone wants to be part of your story, they better come correct. With respect, with consistency, with energy that doesn't vanish the moment it gets inconvenient. One famous words, here's one for your soul. Know your worth, then add tax. That's right. Tax him for your silence. Tax him for your absence. Tax him for your growth, your glow up, your peace. Because you didn't just survive what he did to you. You transformed because of it. And no one deserves that new version of you without earning it. Another truth bomb? You are not hard to love. They were just not strong enough to hold you. Let that sink in. Because it's not your fault they dropped the ball. It's not your burden to carry their inability to see your worth. And if they see it now, good. Let them sit with that realization. Let it sting. Because you, my love, are no longer waiting to be chosen. You've already chosen yourself. So let them return, let them knock, let them watch from afar. But you don't pause your life for unfinished stories. You don't wait at doors that are already closed. You don't set yourself on fire to keep others warm. The woman you are today, she's fierce, she's focused, she's free, and that's the kind of woman the world doesn't forget. Let them remember you as the one who didn't need a grand apology to walk away. Let them remember you as the one who grew stronger in silence. Let them remember you as the lesson they never deserved to learn twice.